Dear human, dear soul, I welcome you to my podcast series Conversations with the Universe. Since a near-death experience, I have the gift to communicate with the subtle energies of the cosmos. This happens in a form of deep meditation in which I ask certain entities of the world beyond to communicate with me. As one of the first contacts with the other world, my old friend and teacher, friend of the Indians, showed himself to me, and it is now a great pleasure for me to introduce you to these conversations as a supplement to the books. Please excuse me if the terms and our articulations are not perfect. Our mother tongue is German, but we try to translate it to the best of our ability. Thank you for understanding. Decisions in job and profession. Dear friend of the Indians, please begin relying your practical advices for humankind.
The practical part will touch upon many areas of your life, and I would ask you, dear Sylvia, to ask whatever you can think of, on any subject you can think of. Please, do ask me, because I cannot cover all subjects by myself. We have to work together here.
I will be happy to. Please begin. You wanted to talk about the choices in the area of jobs and profession.
Yes, I did. Life will constantly present you with new challenges to implement the laws of the cosmos. Human interaction is one of the most challenging areas, and in the sector of work and profession, it can be especially difficult and demanding. I, myself, have experienced this. I wanted to follow the sacred cosmic laws and act wisely, but the circumstances forced me to make other choices. It was always a difficult balance to maintain. Therefore, I would advise you, whenever you get to a point where the universe cannot or does not seem to be able to support your professional goals, to just take a moment of reflection. And take as much time of reflection as you need until you are able to choose calmly. This is important because it allows you enough time to feel the energies and their movement. This will help you to choose well. But when you know the power of the ego, you will not only be supported by time, but also by reflecting on the job itself. Do reflect carefully whether your particular area of work is the best way or place to unfold your life, or whether you are only serving human needs. This is one of the most important questions that you have to answer for yourselves, especially when you come up against recurring problems time and again.
I myself have to deal with many very different people, and many of them very low consciousness, and hence constantly behave in an unfriendly, disrespectful, unloving manner, which in no way honors the law of the cosmos. It is difficult to stay in this attitude that you recommend if you are surrounded by so much low consciousness.
This question requires two answers. On the one hand, an answer for those who live and act in a cold and disrespectful manner, and on the other hand, an answer for those who act lovingly and with a wide open heart, but who receive neither acknowledgement nor validation for this. Let me begin with the cold people. These people who think that their position of power entitles them to treat their co-workers in a negative, unconscious manner, those people are far away from acting wisely, and everything that they create will accelerate the contamination of their soul. Therefore, know that the person who treats other people this way will be solely responsible for these actions. Unconsciousness does not protect you from the results and resonances of the actions caused by it. Therefore, these people will have to create balance for everything, in this or in another life. I repeat, everything. Because if you leave a trace of cold and unloving actions and misuse the energy you possess, you will need many long periods of making amends in order to cancel out these fields of negativity. These leaders and bosses in your society create negative resonances in their unloving, cold, and unconscious treatment of others.
So you could say that they are actually abusing their power, couldn't you?
Yes, that is correct. It is purely egoistical and only creates negativity. Everything that is unloving creates negative energy.
Oh. And this energy then remains and becomes part of them, right?
That is exactly what I wanted to say.
Wow, that means that you have to ask the people who lead and supervise others to do so exclusively in a loving, respectful, and cordial manner.
Those would be my words. Yes.
Many people in leading positions are afraid to lose their position. They are constantly under enormous pressure. Is this a valid excuse?
No. Of course, this is no excuse at all. Because they lack responsibility and love, and most of all, consciousness of their own actions. Unconscious heartlessness is part and parcel of the ego. And if you do not conquer your ego, you have to transform the ego from an energy of action into an energy of inaction.
Many people in leading positions are afraid to lose their position. They are consistently under enormous pressure. Is this a valid excuse?
No, of course, this is no excuse at all. Because they lack responsibility and love, and most of all, consciousness of their own actions. Unconscious heartlessness is part and parcel of the ego. And if you do not conquer your ego, you have to transform the ego from an energy of action into an energy of inaction. But this path will become more and more difficult with every unloving act that you commit. I do not wish to spread negativity. Please do not misunderstand me. I just want you to be clear about the consequences of your actions. Every word that you speak, every thought that you have, everything that you do while interacting with other creatures are lasting resonance and creates new actions, which in turn create new reactions. And if these were loving actions in the first place, the reactions will be full of love, and so you will receive more strengthening and supporting energy than if you only lived through the ego. Those who led their enterprises wisely and with their heart energy send a beam of light into humanity, as it were. Their energy resonates vigorously and far into the ether. Of course, these luminous impulses create powerful reverberations and ultimately bring back much light, energy, and love back to the sender. Please, do not despair when some people cannot implement this kind of leadership. There are others who do, and many even do this unconsciously. Let me say this again for all to read and to hear. People often receive wise and loving impulses that are sent out into the cosmos subconsciously, which then impulse them to become more loving and energetic themselves. The cosmos lovingly and energetically supports this way of supporting other beings. Business leaders of this type will evolve even more strongly. Their limitations will recede further and further, and their opportunities will increase.
Dear friend of the Indians, maybe I'm wrong, but you cannot really say that the big companies in this world are all being led by wise souls. Surely, it is mostly power-hungry individual that's become successful.
Dearest, you cannot measure success by human standards. We measure success by the number of loving impulses sent out into humankind. You do not take numbers along with you into the next life, but energy.
That's a nice line. What can a person do who wants to be successful on earth but still put the goals of the soul above earthly success?
He simply has to clearly formulate this goal. And then he must treat his fellow humans with love and respect every moment of his life, especially in times of stress or crisis.
So, what are you saying is that the one thing does not preclude the other? That you can do whatever you wish as long as it is in harmony with the cosmic law, right?
Right?
What can you do when your co-workers are bullying you?
It is important to note that two forces can have a destructive effect on each other. People who are confronted with such problems have two choices. Either they approach these contaminated people in a loving manner and communicate love and expansion to them through their words, or they keep their distance.
You mean quit this job?
Yes, exactly.
Not everybody has the strength to treat these bullying people with love and friendliness all the time.
That may be, but it is one solution, and I want to point out all the possible solutions here.
But is there a type of guarantee that a loving approach will have an effect on the person in question, at least at some point in time?
That is a complex subject, because these people bring many contaminating issues to the table, issues on which they do not reflect, and therefore it may take many years before the new loving approach takes effect. But ultimately, it is true that loving behavior only creates luminous and loving resonances. Therefore, it is a matter of patience and strength. If you meditate a lot and practice self-reflection, you can receive this energy from the cosmos. Therefore, you must choose for yourselves whether to continue your path while remaining in the workplace or keeping your distance.
Well, many people are afraid that they will not find another job and that they are therefore stuck in this situation.
That may be, but please tell them that there will always be a solution. The end of one job is not by any means the end of life. It's a call from your soul telling you to move to where it is better, more alive and more energetic.
You mean to say that there is always a progression? And what advice should we give to those employees who have to live with a disrespectful and ungrateful boss?
That is another matter. Because in such a case there are hierarchies in place.
Yes.
These people act in low consciousness, and the low consciousness of these entrepreneurs causes the employees to be treated without love and respect. The employees carrying out commands have to be obey those impulses, but this is less an active reaction than a kind of inactive reaction. What I mean is that the employees who are reacting should try to implement their boss's impulses in a spirit of gratitude, but at the same time establish a supportive atmosphere. I recommend using the protective measures for the day that I have already communicated to you. That way, you can carry out orders lovingly and react lovingly, but you do not have to worry about balancing this situation. You could not do this anyway because the decisive impulse came from this entrepreneur and the responsibility is his alone. You can bring his low level of consciousness to his attention, but ultimately you can do nothing more except live in gratitude and exercise protection. It always helps to keep your distance when meeting people of low consciousness.
But that does not mean that we have to endure everything that our boss inflicts on us. Or does it?
No, of course not. I just do not want all employees to react prematurely just because their boss has a low level of awareness. Therefore, I would give these 2 tips as a formula, and if you cannot endure it any longer, then please walk away.
You mean leave the workspace?
I prefer the term distance, because we do not exist separate from each other, but can only increase the distance to each other, yet never entirely separate.
Yes, of course. Would you like to add something else?
That was the essence, dearest. I do not wish to say anything more on the subject.
Then let us put down some practical tips on how you can make your workplace a more powerful place or protect it energetically. Please tell me more about that.
These are 2 different approaches, dear. Let us begin with the energy. First of all, you need frankincense because it keeps the energies of the place in a stable and amplified state. But do not worry, you do not need much of it. A little goes a long way. You can put it into a small bag or box and put it into one of your desk drawers. There it is still close enough to your energy field to be effective.
Can you briefly explain the effect of frankincense? Frankincense?
Frankincense stabilizes the energy. Without it, you are continuously under a sort of energetic stress. But the frankincense keeps the energy in place. And when you create positive energy, the frankincense retains it, and you do not have to keep creating it from scratch. That is the task of frankincense. Then, please place a horizontal figure 8 on your desk. You can draw this or have it made from a material of your choice. You can also use it as a coaster or mat of some sort. It does not have to be ostensibly visible because, ultimately, it takes effect whether you can see it or not.
What is the meaning of the horizontal figure 8?
The horizontal figure 8 has a transformational effect. It transforms negative energy into positive energy. Therefore, it is helpful to keep this symbol on your desk because this is where you will constantly come into contact with negative forces, even if you just communicate with them.
You mean while making a telephone call?
That is one form of communication, dearest. I mean all forms.
Oh, so email and other types as well?
Yes, dear, as I said, all forms of communication.
Can you consciously use the horizontal figure 8 in order to transform your own negative feelings into positive feelings?
You do not need to do that. The symbol works on the subconscious level. Next, please also put a rock crystal on your desk. The size of the crystal is not important, but it has to be a clear crystal. No impurities, please. The crystal can be small, but it must be clear. No fissures, no inclusions. It has to be as clear as glass. This crystal completes the unfolding of your energy. It accelerates it.
Ah, okay. Frankincense protects, the infinity symbol transforms, and the crystal accelerates.
You put it very well, for it is exactly so.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Could you possibly say something about the quality of different types of frankincense resins?
No. But if you wish, you can use a larger piece because this works better than a smaller piece.
I always use the frankincense Oman. It is of very good quality and the pieces are very nice and firm. They do not tend to break apart into crumbs. I will put this address of the suppliers here at the end.
These are very powerful and effective resins.
What about flowers?
Flowers do not accelerate, but they dignify a room. But in order to work on an energetic level, you mainly need the three things that I mentioned.
Do you have to keep anything else in mind when you come to your workplace in the morning?
No,
And when you leave it in the evening?
no.
Okay. Well then, thank you very much. Love.
I thank you, dear.